All right, you guys, it is about that time to finally start to get into some NFL draft analysis. And we start that first after wrapping up the scouting combine. What do the Chargers now have to basically look at coming into the 2024 NFL draft? We're going to be explaining a little bit more about that here up on Charger Syndicate. What's going on, you guys? Jake Silva here on Charger Syndicate, bringing you all of the best in Chargers news. If it is your first time, I encourage all of you guys to like, subscribe, and hit the bell button to keep you up to date on future and past videos as well for everything you need, Chargers news, analysis, and more. So in this video here in particular, we are finally getting into it because next month, that is when the NFL draft begins to happen. And the Chargers have an awful lot to really look into coming into the NFL draft, and a lot of draftees names that could very much be on the Chargers' radars. So we're going to start with basically where the Chargers are right now when it comes to their draft picks, because they do have a full slate of their draft picks ranging from rounds 1 all the way to 7. Now, the picks they have this year is about 8 of them. So they rank from first round, 5th pick, second round, 37th pick, third round, 69th, fourth, 105th, fifth, they've got 138th, sixth is 182nd, and then in the seventh is 222nd and 255th pick. So this is really going to be, a draft that I think for a lot of Charger fans, they're getting absolutely excited about. Because unlike most drafts that we've had in previous years, this has to be by far the most stacked draft that we've even seen. And it's mostly been stacked on the offensive ends because quarterback rankings have been rising up. Offensive tackles and offensive linemen as well has been proven to be valuable. And of course, there's an endless overhaul of wide receivers as well. So Chargers have a lot on their hands to basically look at when it comes to scouting, analysis, developments, and so much more. So the Chargers really do have an awful lot to really look at with some of these draftees. Now, there are a couple names that we know right off the bat that they've been talking about, which has been Georgia's big tight end. Brock Bowers has been a name that's been thrown around. LSU's wide receiver Malik Neighbors, his name's been thrown around. But there are a bunch of them. Now, the thing to basically get on hand is where the Chargers have basically ranked from here. Now, we know free agency is starting up in this month of March, but these are basically the needs that the Chargers really, really do need to look for. So there's only about a few positions that they know they need to fill. Many of those positions go from running back, interior defensive line, tight end, corner, safety, center, and wide receiver. Those are basically the most important that they need to fill, at least 7 positions, because they already know they got the quarterback right. They've got the left tackle right with Rashawn Slater. And the offensive line seems to be very, very intact. But of course, too, you can't go wrong with at least beefing up the offensive line a little bit more. But the thing that has been the narrative for the Chargers is they need to get more playmakers. They need to get more playmakers in certain positions, whether it's tight end, wide receiver, and of course at the corner and safety position. Because right now they just haven't been able to find that. So looking at least to the Chargers' stats from what we saw from last season is the Chargers offense kind of was staying pretty stale for the most part. But I think part of that reason was injuries became such a big thing, not to mention inconsistencies from the head coach, from Brandon Staley before they fired him and they hired Jim Harbaugh. So this team, when it came to points per game, they only had 20.4, which was 21st in the league, averaging at least yards per game, 329, about 18th. But of course, yards and points per plays were not the greatest because they ranked the 23rd in points per play and yards per play at 5.1 at 21st that they ranked at. Now, the only good news is their third down conversions did get better because they were able to convert over 39% of their third downs, which was ranked 16th. So that's something. That's a positive that the Chargers really do have. But amongst all of that, fourth downs was basically at a 46.8%. So it was about 23rd, still kind of middle of the pack. but still not as good. And that's something they want to improve. Now, the only thing that really you could definitely smile about as a Charger fan is the red zone scoring percentage. They were able to be 14th in the league at 57.45%. So the red zone scoring really has looked good for them. Now, on the defensive side of things, opponents per game, they were giving up 23.4, which was 23rd in the league, which is something that they really, really need to improve on. But also the yards per game, they've allowed the most than they have of really going and getting yards themselves. They allowed 362.9 yards, which was almost about 3 spots close to dead last in the league. That is something they need to shut down. Part of that is run defense, still not as great. But the other thing was the secondaries got absolutely toast in the backfield. So that's part of the reasons that has accounted for the Chargers moving forward and what they really need to start to solidify in both the free agent market and, of course, in the draft. But the other thing that they've also have been able to do is opponents' third down conversions was about middle of the pack at rank 15, where they had 36% of that. So it was harder for many opponents to convert on third downs. However, the fourth down killed the Chargers. Fourth down conversions was at 59.38%, which was 28th in the league. So if you're telling me you're shutting them down to try to potentially get 3 and outs, you also got to shut them down when it comes to fourth downs as well, even if it's 4th and 1, 4th and 2. So that's where the Chargers really need to start to improve in that area as well. Now, when we start to look at the running backs position, the rushing statistics, rush play percentage was at 27th, which meant they threw more times than they have of running the ball. And I think part of that reason was Eckler was hurt. They didn't quite trust their running back committee. So that's something the Chargers really need to kind of keep an eye at. Plus, their yards per rush was at a 3.8, 27th in the league. Not good enough, especially if you're trying to be one of the best rushing teams in the league. If you're not rushing for more than 5 yards a play, there's a question mark that's there. And that's going to say a lot about your offense as a whole. When you're trying to support Justin Herbert, when it comes to you need to instill a run game, you need to give Justin Herbert at least a little bit more time to really kind of relax and poise and then be able to, instill a bunch of throws. But you can't be overly reliant on Justin Herbert all the time. That's why the Chargers need to improve that run game. Now, running defense, however, opponents' rush play percentages, they were running the ball more times. It was ranked 13th, where it was 41.96%. However, a lot of their rushes, because opponents' yards per rush did get a little better. It got a 4.1 at 13th rank. So it is trending positively. But however, opponents' rushes per game all throughout it, they were ranked 18th at 27.5. So they're making some progress, but they would very much like to get at least a little bit more in the tanks as well. Now, passing defenses, of course, which was the biggest hefty thing that kind of killed the Chargers all throughout last season. Opponents' pass per play percentage, they were passing the ball more times, and they were ranked 20th against that. But the other thing that's also kind of killed them is opponents' yards per pass. They were able to pass 7.1 yards, and they were ranked 28th, almost last. So they were basically walking all over them when it came to big plays and when it came to first downs as well. That's where the Chargers really have to improve. And not to mention their passes per game, 35.2. They were ranked 24th. But opponents' yards per game was over 249.8, which was 29th in the league. The Chargers have an awful lot they have to look at. They've got to look to solidifying corner. They got to solidify looking for the run game, but they also need to start getting some playmakers on all the positions from wide receivers to tight end. So hopefully the Chargers are able to do this in a big manner, in a big fashion. And these draftees that we've seen so far from the combine, there's guys that are very elusive, guys that's got great hands, and guys that could actually run some routes that could be big-time forces to be reckoned with when they get drafted into the league. So there's a lot to really look at for the Chargers, but I'm really excited for what's to come as we start to move into the draft next month in April. Appreciate you guys here for checking out this video. If you haven't done so already, like, subscribe, and hit the bell button to keep you up to date on more future videos. here on Chargers Syndicate. Jake Silva signing off, and we'll see you guys on the next video. Take care, you guys.